Welcome to Encounters, the Hidden Truth. We investigate all kinds of strange phenomena on Encounters, but often we arrive on the scene after the fact. In those cases, we have to rely on the testimony of eyewitnesses.
But sometimes we get lucky, and our camera is on hand to record a real phenomenon as it happens. As you'll see in our next story, the evidence is there, only the explanation is subject to debate.
Who are we speaking with?
At one time, this might have been described as a seance centered around a homemade Ouija board. But to Bryce and Lisa Johnson and their two friends Jessica and Kendra, Ouija is the wrong word. To them, it's an angel board, a tool for communicating with the spirit world.
Well, we just felt like there was a presence here in this house, and we wanted a way to communicate with that presence. And none of us liked the idea and the concept of a Ouija board, so we designed our own board, if you will.
Using a sheet of paper and a wine glass turned upside down, the group gathered in this Pasadena home and began to experiment.
We literally just picked up a piece of typing paper and said, let's write the alphabet on this side and maybe some numbers on this side and see what happens.
This process connects the linked energy of the participants with their wine glass pointer, spelling out messages letter by letter, number by number. Bryce Johnson believes that the text of these messages is dictated by a sublime messenger.
Just one day out of nowhere, a source came through that identified themselves as angels for each one of us, giving us their names and telling us specifically that they were in fact our guardian angels.
Bryce and Lisa believe that in test after test, their angel board connected them with the spirit world. They were anxious to use this power to help people communicate with loved ones who've passed on. Encounters found the people they were looking for. Recently, Beverly McGlover and her daughter Tori suffered a terrible loss.
My 17-year-old son was a victim of homicide on August the 23rd. He had been home by himself, and according to reports, someone knocked on the door. And when he opened the door, he was killed in a hail of gunfire. And they don't have any suspects. He was very quiet, but he was a practical joker, because usually with his friends, he was the kind of kid that kept you laughing all the time.
Beverly had recently moved the family to Moreno Valley to protect Todd from the influence of gangs.
When a black teen gets killed, that's the first thing that they attach to it, but he wasn't in a gang, you know, he wasn't in a gang.
Beverly and Tori were devastated by Todd's death. Tori in particular was unable to move on after her brother's murder.
That was my youngest brother, my only brother. I took for granted the times that we had together. Now that I think about it, just little arguments, and I'll do anything right now just to argue with him.
She tries desperately to cope, and most of the time she falls short. I felt like, well, if I love this person and I lose him, I'll be hurt again. So I just want to be alone. I want to be alone. I don't want to love anyone. That's how I felt.
They needed closure and were anxious to take part in our experiment, but before Encounters brought everyone together, we made certain that the group in Pasadena knew nothing about the McGlover case.
The only thing they had was our names. They didn't really have anything to go on, so they just had our names.
I didn't give them any information but, hi, my name is Tori. That's all.
Tori in particular was not inclined to believe anything about communicating with the dead.
At first I was like, I felt like just getting up and running out the door. I was like, I don't know these people, what are we doing? And I wanted to just run away from it all.
But after they laid their fingers on the wine glass, their skepticism vanished.
Is there something I need to know?
That glass moved around and the force was just unbelievable.
Who are we speaking with? T? O?
Okay, what's after T-O? And D?
Todd. Is that?
It's my son.
How it is?
I had an overwhelming feeling. It was just overwhelming feeling. When they went to the T, you know, they asked if it was an angel there, and they said yes, and
They asked him what his name was, and he spelled T-O-D, didn't finish, but I knew it was my son.
And when he spelled that name out, it really amazed me. It really did. And I wasn't emotionally ready for the things that happened.
Are we speaking to Todd directly?
Todd, can you tell me, who did you see on August 23rd? A boy by A, B, U, S.
There's a stop.
H, a boy by a bush. Did he shoot you? Did you recognize this boy?
There is a bush right by my door. There's a bush there. It was not a shot in the dark. I mean, they were very specific about a lot of things. Like, the person that killed him was by bushes in front of my house. There are a lot of bushes about my house, and people here didn't know that.
Until the Angel Board session, Bryce and his friends didn't know any of the details that emerged. Still, a skeptic would argue that Beverly and Tori were unconsciously guiding the glass. But that's not how it felt to them.
It felt like a very strong force was just taking it and moving it around like I didn't have any control over it. It was really unbelievable, the way that glass moved.
To experts, this amazing process can be explained.
Most psychic experiences occur on a subconscious or unconscious level and then filter their way into our conscious mind. And so with the board, you're able to directly get messages from your unconscious mind.
Whatever force was moving that glass, something happened while our cameras were rolling that is completely unexplainable. Beverly asked a question to which no one in the room knew the answer.
I have a question. I'm sure you're familiar with Todd and my whole family. I need to know where his bike is. He has a bike that's missing. Can you tell me who he loaned his bike to?
Yes.
Okay, let me see.
BJ. That's his best friend.
Thank you. I had to smile because it didn't say Benjamin, it said BJ, and that's the name that he goes by.
We called BJ and we asked BJ, did he have the bike? And he had the bike. I've been waiting for something like this. Sometime I'll sit in the living room with the lights off and I'll say, okay, if you're there, talk to me. And it wouldn't work. I think God answered my prayers by bringing me here because I was dying inside because I wanted to know. I needed to know. I just feel like I can get on with my life. And if anybody out there thinks that when you die, you're gone, it's not true. Your loved one is always there. They're always there.
Now, there's simply got to be some other explanation for what happened other than guardian angels. Now, isn't it possible that that glass was just manipulated into giving the answers Beverly and Tori wanted to hear?
Well, John, this time the cameras and the viewers have got to be the final judges. I sure didn't see anything. And remember, none of the people in the room knew about BJ and the bike. That makes the case that much stronger. Encounters will be back in a moment.
Coming up, this man claims he was attacked by a sinister entity.
I was like, you put a rag over my face and I was being smothered.
We uncovered the haunting evidence in this deadly country bar.
I do believe that there is something evil in the building.
And later, crop circles in America's heartland.
Several crop formations have shown up in the Midwest and in the South as well.
Is it a sign that aliens are among us? Plus,
I'd never seen anything like that before.
They're clear daylight photographs of UFOs never before seen on network television.
About the following story is ordinary.
It certainly isn't, John. It may have begun with the unspeakable acts of a satanic cult. It continued with a series of frightening incidents that turned an ordinary nightclub into a ghostly war zone, and it may not be over yet.
We was all in the room where all the games and the boys, and we were just sitting down, and the thing started rattling and moving, and I got scared. And I was just scared that it was gonna hurt me.
The machine right here started shaking, and the wall sounded like it was scratching.
The machines cannot click, but there ain't no electricity running into them. No possible way.
This man is on a mission. Richard Lawson is about to fight a legal battle over something never before debated in an American court of law: the existence of a ghost. Richard believes he was attacked by an evil spirit in a nightclub, and he holds the club's owner responsible.
So it's your testimony that the spirit that you actually saw is someone who cannot actually impart physical injury on people? You just were scared?
I don't know what spirit, ghost, whatever you want to call that, can do to you. I just know that I was like, you put a rag over my face and I was being smothered. I could not get air.
The spirit supposedly lives at Bobby Mackey's Music World, a country music bar in Wilder, Kentucky. Strange events have haunted this club for years. Furniture sliding across the floor, lights flicking on and off, and the mechanical bull with a mind of its own. Even local police agree that something isn't right at the club.
I get an uneasy feeling. I don't like going in there. I do believe that there is something evil in the building, and I'd rather not be around it.
Larry Hornsby, chief of security at the club, discovered a very strange hole during Encounter's visit.
The hole was just like breathing, going out like this. Then, all of a sudden, when it just stopped. I mean, just stopped.
The nightclub even has local law enforcement concerned.
The building has an ability to, I think, alter people's moods. People walk in smiling, how you doing, shaking hands, and come out fighting.
The club's owner, country music star Bobby Mackey, dismisses the establishment's bizarre reputation.
Is Bobby Mackey's Music World haunted?
I absolutely do not believe this place is haunted in any way whatsoever. I don't want anyone to feel like they're unsafe coming here. There's nothing unsafe about this place.
Tell that to Richard Lawson. On the night of August 20th, 1994, something extraordinary may have happened in the club's men's room, something that literally scared Richard half to death. Since then, he's refused to set foot inside that room.
With all of us here, would you take us into the bathroom?
I guess so, because I know it won't hurt me. I know it can't hurt me. I've been told it can't hurt me. I opened the door and started down this hallway here.
Because the music hadn't started yet, the club was nearly empty that night, and Richard found himself alone in the men's room.
I was getting ready to put my hands down at the wash basin, and this garbage can right here, this white metal garbage can, shot straight right there to the petition wall of the commode right here. I spun around to see what happened with the can, and out of my peripheral vision, there it stood of an image of a man. I don't know what you want to call it, a ghost, a demon, a spirit, or whatever you want to call it. But his hair was wavy and parted to one side and then parted down to this side, and his mustache was like mine, but it was black and it curled up.
Moments later, Chief of Security Larry Hornsby rushed into the bathroom and found Richard collapsed unconscious on the floor. Although the ghostly figure had disappeared, the supernatural phenomenon continued.
The first thing I seen was the garbage can going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Bang, 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 bang.
Richard's condition was serious. It took the authorities nearly half an hour to revive him from a coma brought on purely by fright.
His hands was so cold and ice. His hands was ice cold. Ice cold.
As soon as he recovered, Richard confronted Bobby Mackey.
And I told him he had to have something done in his nightclub before somebody died, and he refused. He still did not want to believe it or anything like that. And I said, well, if you don't want to do something about it, I will see it's done, because it's messed with the wrong person.
2 days later, Richard filed suit. In court, Bobby Mackey's lawyer argued that the ghost was beyond his client's control.
Clearly, the ghost is not an employee, and they cannot be held responsible for this type of an independent force or agency under Kentucky law.
In the end, the judge agreed.
There just isn't any case here against them, so I'm going to grant the motion to dismiss and render judgment for the defendant.
Well, Your Honor, I've done my duty for the public, and if someone dies in Bobby Mackey's nightclub, it will not be on my hands. It will be on the court's hands. Thank you very much.
It won't be on the court's hands, but I'm happy to hear it won't be on your hands either. All right, case is dismissed.
If Richard did see a ghost, it may be linked to this building's dark side and sordid history.
Encounters has learned that this location was the site of 19th century satanic rituals. Local historian Doug Hensley spent 5 years piecing together the building's past.
In 1896, a girl named Pearl Bryan was beheaded approximately 2.5 miles from this site. When her headless body was found, the bloodhounds tracked the killers to a slaughterhouse along the Licking River, which is now Bobby Mackey's nightclub.
Devil worshiper Alonzo Walling was arrested and hanged for the crime, but his victim's head was never found.
I do believe Pearl Bryan's head is somewhere on this site of Bobby Mackey's nightclub.
With Bobby Mackey's consent, we enlisted the services of renowned psychic Dr. Peter Moscow. Following Dr. Moscow's lead, we searched the nightclub's vast and eerie basement. Its many rooms still bore remnants of the building's 150-year history. Again, Dr. Moscow pointed the way.
This area here, there's a big circle around this area here, and it's that's coming up, and it's like an open vortex of energy that has never been sealed off.
Looking for the source of that vortex, we broke through the basement floor. Soon, we made a curious discovery, an old well filled with debris. For hours, we dug into the well, searching for the missing head. Although we didn't find it, we did unearth part of a skeleton. We don't know whether it belongs to Pearl Bryan, but historian Doug Hensley is sure that the ghost in the men's room was devil worshiper Alonzo Walling. Why? Because of a strange phrase that the ghost kept repeating to Richard.
Die gang, die gang, die gang, die gang.
The day before Alonzo Walling was hung, Alonzo Walling received a letter from a friend, a female friend in Indiana. In the letter, she told him to die game, which means die well, die brave, die good.
Is Bobby Mackey's music world haunted by the ghost of Alonzo Walling? Bobby may have won his case in court, but he's still not taking any chances. A sign over the door to his club warns his customers to enter at their own risk.
I can't help but think that all this notoriety is a double-edged sword for Bobby Mackey. After all, any publicity is good for business.
Well, John, publicity is one thing, but lawsuits and terrified customers is something else. Whatever it is that's going on in this club, satanic ghost or an overactive imagination, Bobby Mackey and Richard Lawson agree on one thing. It's got to stop.
Encounters will be right back.
Coming up, crop circles in America's heartland.
Several crop formations have shown up in the Midwest and in the South as well.
Is it a sign that aliens are among us? And later, in a special investigation,
I'd never seen anything like that before.
They're clear daylight photographs of UFOs never before seen on network television. Are they real or a hoax?
Every day, events happen around the world that defy explanation. We'd like to share some of these stories with you. Traditionally, crop circles are a phenomenon associated with Europe, but recently there have been significant discoveries on American soil.
Several crop formations have shown up in the Midwest and in the South as well, in the southern part of the United States.
On June 14th, 1994, a huge formation was discovered alongside a highway near Portland, Oregon. The fact that something was cut into the tall wheat grass was certain. Who made it or how it was made was a subject for conjecture.
And then you've got the evidence here that it is probably something that may not be man-made because the scientists are finding genetic changes in the structure of the plant.
Carol Peterson is the Oregon coordinator of the Center for Crop Circle Studies. When her team arrived at the scene, they began the difficult task of trying to determine if the formation was a hoax or something else.
The kinds of things we're looking for today are bending, splitting of the nodes. We're looking for delicate charring, which often shows up on the wheat head itself in a crop formation. We are looking for electromagnetic effects. Now this one is showing splits in the nodes are characteristic of genuine formations.
After painstaking scrutiny, they found several anomalies.
There's an interesting feature of this circle, which there seems to be some golden crop wheat heads. They're all over the place, interspersed, and they're golden. And most of the grain here is green. So this is not a mature wheat field, and yet you've got golden wheat growing in the circle area. So it almost looks like it's been artificially ripened.
Despite such evidence, investigators face a daunting task. Finding real proof often means determining which formations are fakes.
It's difficult to say whether or not a crop circle is a hoax until the results come back from the laboratory, because we have been fooled before. My initial feel is that it's a genuine formation.
For the past 3 years, a Georgia housewife named Nancy Fowler has claimed that she has been visited by the Virgin Mary on the 13th of every month. As a result, tens of thousands of people have made the pilgrimage to this small-town farm. Every month, the crush of believers begins to swell in the tiny community of Conyers, Georgia. From all 50 states and from Europe and Mexico, they come. At times, their numbers have exceeded 50,000 people, each hoping for a miracle. Their goal? To hear the messages of a reluctant medium named Nancy Fowler.
You know, I'm not a public speaker. I have no training. I really don't consider myself very educated. Very unqualified for the position that our Lord has asked me to be in. So I just try in my very simple way to explain what I'm being shown and to tell you what I hear.
Once each month, Nancy enters what she calls the apparition room. As the crowds start to gather, she says a vision of the Virgin Mary appears to her. There, Nancy believes she receives messages she relays to an eager audience.
As soon as she said the Blessed Mother is descending, coming down, you know, she took this.
Many visitors to the farm speak of personal visions and physical and psychological healing. Although the Catholic Church has not yet deemed Conyers a holy site, that has not deterred the faithful. Some even believe that water from an old well on the property has healing powers. But while followers, skeptics, and theologians may not be in agreement as to whether or not this is the real thing, one visitor may have put it best.
The biggest miracle is to see all these people together in silence for a long time, all for one reason: peace in the world.
This apparition is now being investigated by the Catholic Church, which has already deemed other such events authentic miracles. One of the world's most famous legends is causing a stir in America's heartland. On a small farm in Janesville, Wisconsin, a symbol of hope for millions of Native Americans has arrived. Tribal elders from all over the country have been called to perform sacred rites unchanged for generations. Their chants honor a snow-white buffalo calf aptly named Miracle.
This buffalo calf at this time, coming from the earth, is coming from the center of the universe. It is coming from the one truth, and that is that all is one, and it's coming from the Creator, and it's coming from our Mother, the Earth, and it is that powerful.
To say the least, a pure white buffalo is extremely rare. The odds of such a birth are estimated to be 1 in 6 million. But to many people, Miracle represents nothing less than the fulfillment of an ancient prophecy. According to legend, a tribal village was near starvation when a beautiful woman mysteriously appeared. She taught them to plant corn and utilized the many bison that roamed the Great Plains. The village was saved. Then the woman turned into a white buffalo and disappeared into the mist. But before she left, she promised she would be back one day to usher in a new age of peace and brotherhood. For many years, Native Americans have prayed for this return. Now they come to see Miracle. To many, he symbolizes a new beginning for racial tolerance and harmony. In the lore of many tribes, this is the equivalent of a second coming. And if it makes people work together for an age of peace and hope, he really might just be a miracle. There is a most unusual law on the books in France. Fearing that UFOs might damage their precious vineyards, one village passed a law prohibiting UFOs from landing in their town. Today there's still a wine there that honors this cause, Le Cigare Volant, the flying cigar. And to our knowledge, by the way, all flying saucers have obeyed this law. Keep watching the skies and keep in touch with encounters. We'll be right back.
Coming up in a special investigation.
I'd never seen anything like that before.
They're clear daylight photographs of UFOs never before seen on network television. Are they real or is it all a hoax? The experts debate the authenticity.
It is not scientific, and he knows it. That's not true.
Now, just what kind of evidence would prove that UFOs are real? To some UFO investigators, that evidence already exists in a series of remarkable photographs and movies shot by a Swiss farmer named Billy Meyer.
The footage you're seeing has never aired on network television before. It lies at the heart of a controversy that's raged for almost 20 years. Is this object an alien spacecraft, or is it merely the product of a well-crafted hoax? And if it's a hoax, how could it have been executed by a Swiss farmer with no access to a Hollywood special effects lab? No one knows, yet. Since the mid-1970s, Billy Meyer claims to have had over 100 encounters with UFOs and their occupants. Compounding this controversy is the personal mystery that surrounds Meyer, a man who has steadfastly refused to cooperate with the media. He's reluctant to work with investigators trying to prove or to disprove his evidence. As a result, two distinct points of view have evolved among UFO researchers. Meanwhile, Billy Meyer is content to let his images speak for themselves. Encounter spoke with two digital imaging experts who represent both sides of this controversy. Jim Delatoso, the president of Village Labs in Tempe, Arizona, and Cal Korff, president of Total Research in San Jose, California, have both analyzed the Meyer photos and footage. Their conclusions could not be more different.
When I first saw the Meyer photographs, I thought it was a product of a special effects team. The Meyer photographs were beautiful. The ships were totally in focus, up close, and I was amazed. I'd never seen anything like that before.
The computer shows under color edge enhancement processing this supportive line above the image here, and you can see a second one above this other object here. And in 5 other photos that we have examined from this sequence, for a total of 6 separate pictures, we have found supportive structures.
The entire focus of what's going on with extraterrestrials lives in the Meyer case. Some of it looks suspicious. Some of it looks like it couldn't possibly be real. Some of it is real.
Jim Delatoso is an individual who is not qualified professionally or personally to render the verdicts, if you will, that he does on various UFO photographs. We have caught Delatoso lying repeatedly about his background, and Jim Delatoso's conclusions can never be replicated by anybody else except Jim Delatoso.
Disturbs me when he claims that I'm involved with a hoax, perpetrating a fraud, that we don't know what we're doing, that I'm getting rich off of it, because that's not what's true, and that's not what I'm about. So when I read these things, I don't like it.
Joining us in studio are Jim Delatoso and Cal Korff. Jim's among the staunchest supporters of the Meyer evidence. Now Cal Korff feels quite differently. Cal believes that the Meyer footage is simply not credible. Cal, why do you feel that way?
Well, I've been to Switzerland, unlike Mr. Delatoso, and I've examined the evidence firsthand. When you go to the actual locations where the images were taken, it is not possible for them to be framed or filmed the way that Billy Meyer claims, and anyone can go there and independently check that themselves.
Now, Jim, you've come up with some very different conclusions.
Yes. Well,
don't agree with the fact that they can't be framed that way. What we've done is put together a team of experts going back over 15 years to examine the photographs, the hard evidence, and come up with the opinion based on scientific examination that these are real pictures.
Okay, let me tell you what we've done. We've compiled a reel of some of Billy Meyer's most convincing evidence, starting with photographs taken in the mid-70s of hovering UFOs. Now, Jim, what do you find so convincing about these pictures?
Well, convincing is one thing, but that happens after examining the pictures. We never say, this is a UFO, or this is a flying saucer. We say, this is a large object, or this is a small object, and we find no evidence of a hoax.
Well, for those who have never seen this before or not familiar with the whole Billy Meyer story, what are we looking at?
Well, we're looking at pictures that Billy Meyer took. We have 4 here out of a series of hundreds that he has taken. And this is a picture of a ship known as the Beam Ship that could be just in front of or just behind the tree.
Cal, you believe this is a model. Why?
Well, as you can see, the branches of the tree do not go in front of the object, so it indicates that this so-called UFO is in front of the tree and not behind it. Now, I would be the first to admit that if the branches of the tree were in front of the object, this would be a very large craft indeed, but it's not. The way you fake a photo like this is you simply have a model in front of a tree and you shoot into the sun. And a lot of Meyer's photos are conveniently shot towards the sun to help obscure any sort of supportive structure or device at the very top of them.
Now, faking a still photograph is one thing, but Cal, how do you explain this moving footage?
Well, the first problem is that I find it very strange in this movie that the camera never moves. Now, what are the odds of positioning your camera and having a UFO fly about? Why isn't Meyer following the object? The reason he isn't following the object is because he's busy moving the model around. Secondly, this tree is the same tree that appears in the Fuchspool sequence that later conveniently disappeared. The owners of this house back here, which is a Japanese family, have testified that there's never been a tree at this location. We were at these locations, and no one in the area said that they ever saw a tree there. I even saw photos and family albums of the Swiss families who live there taken of their kids over the years, and they show no tree there.
Are you saying that someone took a tree and placed it in that position?
It's a technique called forced perspective. Hollywood has been using it for nearly 100 years. I'm not the only one to come up with this conclusion.
Cal, hold on for a second. Jim, you had a point to make?
He's claiming the use of forced perspective in trick photography, and that is not the case. This is not scientific. This is an attempt to prove that the case is wrong in order to sell a book. This is wrong in UFO investigations, that a group of people who scientifically go out to analyze and to test things can be just set aside because one person claims that there is a they, that there is a group, and that they are using testing procedures that have all the right words, but it is not scientific, and he knows it.
That's not true. Let me tell you what my position is, because I'm the only one who can state it. I'm a UFO researcher first and foremost. I'm after the truth. I don't care what that truth is. When I study a UFO case, I go in there without...
How many other cases have you studied?
Thousands, Jim.
Which are they? You have not published one thing,
I've had
not
over
one
90
thing
articles
on other
published.
UFO cases.
That is not true. I can send you, I have tons of newspaper clippings over the year. The producers have those here.
I just don't understand. What do you think the motivation would be for someone like a Billy Meyer to create such an elaborate hoax, as you say it is? Why?
I do not address motivation in any of my work because there's no way to scientifically test for it. All I do is say, of all the evidence they offer, this is how it seems to stand up, this is how it seems not to stand up. Why Billy Meyer does what he does? I don't know. I can't speak for him. Only he can.
Looks like we're at the beginning of many more shows about this subject. Thank you both for being with us.
You're welcome.
Encounters will be back in a moment.
Coming up, have scientists discovered the ingredients of life forms in space?
It's possible that life exists in these other galaxies.
And later, can the Lochness monster survive another attack?
It's actually just a toy submarine.
Or will this hoax drive it to extinction?
Condenser! If UFOs do exist, what planet, what galaxy do they come from? Recently, science may have answered part of this question. or at the very least taken the first steps toward finding locations where life could exist. Are we alone in the universe? For those who claim to have seen UFOs or encountered aliens, the answer is obvious. But skeptical astronomers need hard data, and now evidence is surfacing suggesting that alien life might be possible.
Scientific foundation is one thing and wishful thinking is another thing, but at some point they come together. And it has almost happened already.
Dr. Alexander Volstan, an astronomer at Penn State University, recently made an exciting discovery. Using the giant radio telescope at Arecibo, Puerto Rico, Dr. Volstan proved what scientists have long suspected but never known. There are planets beyond our solar system, possible homes for alien life. 3 planets were discovered, revolving around an exotic kind of star close to Earth called a pulsar.
If you take an optimistic view of this discovery, it basically means that if you can make planets around such strange objects like pulsars or neutron stars, that's the same, then they should equally easily or maybe even more easily form around normal stars. So that's the immediate and first conclusion you can draw from this. And just extrapolating from the fact we are here, why not to have someone else being out there?
But for any planet to sustain life as we know it, there has to be one essential ingredient: water. Amazingly, astronomers are finding that water is far more abundant than they ever imagined.
There's water spread throughout the universe, and what we're seeing is places where water happens to be easily visible. In fact, there's water almost everywhere in the universe. In fact, the galaxies that we've looked at where we didn't see water do have water, almost certainly, and it's just too faint to see. So you can see it spread out over a few channels.
Graduate student James Bratz and astronomer Dr. Andrew Wilson have made the search for water in the universe their specialty. They're certain that this life-giving essence can be found outside our solar system.
It's entirely possible that there are planets around stars in the galaxies where we've seen the water, and it's possible that life exists in these other galaxies, but of course we don't know for sure.
So 2 parts of the equation, planets and water, are in place. But do they add up to extraterrestrial life? That question may be answered sooner than anyone thinks. Encounters will be right back.
Coming up, can the Lochness Monster survive another attack?
It's actually just a toy submarine.
Or will this hoax drive it to extinction? If you would like to contact us here at Encounters, write to Encounters, P.O. Box 36B47, Los Angeles, California, 90036. To contact us by phone, call 213-525-1UFO. That's 213-525-1836. Or to contact us online, visit the Encounters forum on CompuServe by typing Go Encounters or at the following number.
Dash on into McDonald's now for the hottest video value in town. Get the time travel adventure Back to the Future for the unbelievable price of just $5.99.
This is it.
When you buy any extra value meal or large sandwich, only at McDonald's today.
With sheer energy, you're ready for anything. Because you're never quite sure where the day is going to take you. Sheer energy from Legs goes wherever you need it to. It's strong, it's sheer, it's beautiful. And with sheer energy, you'll have the energy you need once you get to your next destination. Sheer energy from Legs. It's amazing how far you can go in a great pair of pantyhose.
Hey, Remington, shave this.
If you can grow it, we can shave it. Remington's created the Triple Foil, the only shaver with 3 narrow microscreens to cross-cut each whisker 3 times. For hard-to-shave places on hard-to-shave faces. The Remington Triple Foil.
If you can grow it, we can shave it.
And for women, a silky smooth shave in or out of the shower. The Remington Wet Dry.
Now you can discover the flavor of Paris. One freshly brewed cup at a time with Folgers French Vanilla Nut Gourmet Coffee Singles. Coffee indulgently vanilla with a hint of hazelnut. Go on, enjoy.
music's over, so's the party. That's why Magnavox makes a great-sounding mini-system that plays 7 CDs for over 8 hours of non-stop music. Hey, we make technology people want. Magnavox. Smart. Very smart.
Tonight on Married with Children, the Bundys are going to Washington.
Look out!
And Al's going to Congress to give them a piece of his mind.
Don't say anything that'll make us look stupid.
No problem. Married with Children.
Senators and Senatorettes.
Al rocks the house on a brand new episode tonight.
Has been argued for generations, and the evidence, such as it is, has always been controversial. One of the most dramatic photographs of Nessie was taken in 1934, and its authenticity has been debated ever since. But now, the debate is over. Shot in 1934, it is the first and most famous photograph of Nessie. Scientists have scrutinized it for over half a century, and no one was ever able to prove it fake. But recently, Lochness researcher David Martin stumbled across an old news article claiming the photo was a complete hoax.
It was actually a story by a man called Ian Wetherell who claimed that it was he and his stepbrother Christian Sperling who had made the model monster in 1934 and floated on the Loch, and it was actually just a toy submarine.
But that story was published in 1975. Why did it take so long for anyone to notice?
It was a very small article. It was in a gossip column type page. It was in the middle, so this particular story, in effect, got lost amongst the pages and remained hidden from 75 until 1992, which is when we sort of came across it again.
Martin tracked down 87-year-old Christian Sperling, who explained how he had created a monster out of a toy submarine.
So there was a body, you modelled the body on the top of the submarine model?
That's right. It took us about 8 days to make it. And to keep it from not turning over, we took the submarine body and had a small strip of lead soldered onto it. So that gave it kept it upright.
Stability, that's underneath right. Like a keel.
That's right. It was interesting. We got a lot of fun out of it.
When the foot-long model was finished, Sperling's stepfather, a freelance newsman, floated the tiny monster onto Loch Ness and snapped away. All of this revelation has discouraged some Nessie experts. Others aren't certain this confession is legitimate. Richard Greenwell of the International Society of Cryptozoology explains why.
There's a number of factors that have come up with the concept that it's a hoax. One is the claim by this elderly gentleman was that it was photographed in a small inlet in a bay. That is not visible in the complete uncropped photograph that was recently found in archives. Another problem is that this elderly gentleman said that the water bailiff came along after they'd taken the picture and they stomped on the little submarine model and kicked it underwater to destroy it. They never retrieved it. But Loch Ness, like all glacial lakes, has very steep sides, and if you walked out to stomp on this model to the distance that it shows in the photograph, you'd have water over your head. Furthermore, Paul LeBlanc at the University of British Columbia was able to determine that the object was around 4 feet high, not 1 foot high. He was able to do that by determining the length of the waves visible in the picture, knowing the wind speed that day.
Even if Sperling told the truth, Greenwell is still willing to give Nessie another chance.
Well, a phenomenon can never really just be totally dependent on one photograph in this case. There's thousands of reports, there's underwater photographs, other photographs. So if it's a hoax, doesn't mean that Nessie, well, it would actually be a population of Nessies, doesn't mean that they don't exist.
The bottom line in the Loch Ness Monster? People will believe what they want to believe. There are only 2 ways you can react to the stories you've seen here tonight: skepticism or belief. Both views have their merit, and as we've seen, their passion. It's important to remember that each side needs the other, and that the hidden truth may fall in between both points of view. I'm John Marshall. Good night.
Hey, it's Jimmy the Fox guy. What's a Leguizamo?
Like a who's what?
Leguizamo. He's great. He's happy. He's cool. He's got a show coming on in January on Fox. It's called House of Buggin'.
House of Buggin'?
Leguizamo. The Ballad of John Leguizamo brings a tear to my eye.
House of Buggin' coming